We read in verse 8 these words, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank, and therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself." Daniel purposed in his heart. To read the word teenager and purposed ought to wake you right up. Because usually when you're a kid, and I remember my teenage years, I thought I was very much self-committed to things, but in reality, looking back, I followed the crowd like every other teenager does. You know, they find a group of folks who do what they like, and that's who they run with. But not Daniel. He had tremendous personal conviction. You know, we train up our children in the ways that they should go, and we hang on to the promise that when they get old, they won't depart from it. But you really never know how well you did till they're out from under your influence. You know, those are anxious years for parents as they wait for it to kick in. Come on, Lord, you promised, kick in, you know. And sometimes you have to wait a while. Well, Daniel at 16 had already purposed. He had made a decision. It was willful. It was thoughtful. He had made it in his heart. It was about his heart, his relationship with God. There's that Proverbs in chapter 4, verse 23 that says, if you will keep your heart, you should do it with all diligence, because out of your heart come the issues of life. And Daniel was sure that this is the right thing to do. I can't eat of that food. I can't drink of that drink. It violates my relationship with God. It violates the very thing God had asked me to do. They could capture him. They could drag him out of his house. They could change his name and tell him lots of lies, but they couldn't get to his heart. No way. It's personal now. This is personal between God and I. The Babylonians in power would mock his faith, but Daniel would stand strong. It reminds me of Joseph again. You know, he ends up in Potiphar's house, and his wife, you know, starts hitting on the young, good-looking Joseph, and she finally grabs him and says, come to bed with me. And he said, no, wait a minute. Your husband has entrusted everything to me in his life except for you, and you belong to him. How could I do such great wickedness and sin against God? It was personal. Everything on the outward might have said, hey, that's a good deal for you. It's a beautiful, rich, wealthy woman. You're a young man. What could be better for you? No, this is personal. And for Daniel, it had gotten personal. He wasn't going to go with the flow when it came to his heart. Now some others might have argued, look, Daniel, that's a minor point, man. This is legalism. It's foolish. Look, why don't we just go along? Quit rocking the boat. But to Daniel, in his heart, it was worth the price. I can't do this. This is a fight of conscience and faith. I got to do the right thing. And it cost him, or it could have. It cost you to follow the Lord. You know, you put the Lord first. You purpose in your heart to honor him. You may lose a promotion. You may lose a couple of friends. You may lose in the world a little bit. You may get set back. But for Daniel, his obedience was just based on his faith. And he loved the Lord, and he loved his word. He loved the law of God. I want to follow him. He uses the word defile. This would dirty me. This would destroy me. My standing against, you know, or with this would just harm my relationship with God. And not to mention all of the meat in every first century or even earlier, you know, heathen environment was always first offered to the gods and then served to the people. So for Daniel to eat it would have been to say outwardly, no, I don't mind not obeying Almighty God. I'll acknowledge this foreign God. And you can just see this young man in the Word and meditating upon it and hiding it in his heart. He had the courage to say no. No. Purposed in his heart. A young man who shows courage that a lot of older saints, unfortunately, do not. But I'll tell you what, if you're in hostile ground, it's good to stay in contact with headquarters, because headquarters can see the whole thing on radar. The Lord is looking down. Don't go straight, turn left. And you go, I just like to go straight with everybody else. No, turn left. And Daniel did. And notice that though the request was personal, he asked for himself, and the words that describe it are singular in verse 8. By verse 10, when he gets a response, the fellow will say, your faces, plural. And servants in verse 12, if your servants can see it through. Daniel was the leader. Daniel set the tone. And I thought reading this, You know, if a few people in a group say yes to sin, many will follow. But if you just get a few folks committed to Jesus, you know, it can turn the hearts of a lot of folks to right. You get a couple of strong kids in high school that love Jesus, and hundreds of kids will follow. You get a couple of leaders that are horribly uncommitted. It won't take long before many turn that way as well. Daniel was a wonderful example.